Good morning. Wait a minute, there's something wrong because it's not telling me who's all on the live. It's not telling me. There seems to be something wrong with the stream today. Let's just click onto this other page and YouTube's playing up, but I will all click onto that. Just check.
Ricos en atardeceres. En calma, en tranquilidad. Cada viernes puedes ganar hasta 6 millones de euros con el cuponazo de la 11. Sé rico en vivir.
Just click onto this. I got back to you via Facebook this morning. YouTube's playing up, but give me a shout. Click onto that. Just Facebook.
Ricos en atardeceres. En calma, en tranquilidad. Cada viernes puedes ganar hasta 6 millones de euros con el cuponazo de la 11. Sé rico en vivir.
Just click onto this. I got back to you via Facebook this morning. YouTube's playing up, but give me a shout. Click onto that. Just Facebook.
Ricos en atardeceres. En calma, en tranquilidad.
I seem to get adverts coming for somewhere else. That's fine. Right, okay. Fine. And there seems to be an issue with YouTube this morning, but there we go. That's on there, but something's went wrong with your... Anyway, as long as it's live, that's fine. Right, I'll need to watch it on this screen. It's snowing here, so envious of you. Hank, where about are you? I know I don't like being in Edinburgh tonight. It's snowing. Where are you, Hank? Where are you? Ding dong, it's snowing. By the way, everyone's saying it's snowing back home. Right, there's lots to talk about this morning. Lots of Celtic news to talk about today. I know I don't like being in Edinburgh tonight. It's snowing. Right, a few things I want to talk about, and obviously one of the stories that is making international news is Alistair Johnston. Alistair Johnston said it was a difficult decision after all 3 years left on his current deal in the East End of Glasgow. The 26-year-old is now contracted to Celtic until 2029. It probably wasn't a priority, says Alistair Johnston, who has made the news across the pond, as they say. He says it's actually hard to believe that I only made my debut just a little while ago. But after lifting 5 trophies under 2 managers, netting 6 goals and providing 14 assists for his teammates, even donning the captain's armband on an occasion. Despite passing through the Parkhead gates less than 2 years ago, he already feels like he's part of the woodwork at Celtic Park. Once his talks started with his agent, he says that's all I wanted to do was sign again for Celtic. The club made it clear that they valued me and they wanted to get the deal done as a priority. That was from the get-go, and it was all about the club wanting to get the deal done, so I'm happy about it. They were clambering for it. I kept on getting asked by fans. He says, they kept saying, are you signing a new deal? I'll tell you when there's something to sign. It was a good day when it all transpired, says Alistair Johnston. In the modern business-driven football world, the protection of assets is ultimately supersedes commitment. Johnston may stay well after his 5 years, but thinking cynically, the long-term deal ultimately means that teams outside Scotland, if they fancy his services, are going to have to pay up big money. However, when it turns to matters over the pitch, it says that the Canadian is settled. He's proposed to his girlfriend in St Andrews, a fantastic part of the world, the Kingdom of Fife, and it should still be called the Kingdom of Fife. Never mind this abbreviation of just cutting it down to Fife and all the road signs. The council need to get it back to calling it the Kingdom of Fife for all the right reasons. Anyway, from outside looking in, it goes on to say Johnson has planted roots and could even well keep him in Scotland beyond 2029. It's early days yet, and it could see Johnson himself spending the rest of his career at Celtic. This article says, that's the great question, he said. He says, I'm not that far-sighted, but I could stand the test of time and demands at Celtic. It would be unbelievably special. There's only a handful of guys that they can do that. And he says Callum McGregor, James Forrest are amongst the most decorated and legendary players at Celtic. It's not often that happens, but we'll see. I have 5 more years and hopefully we can do enough. I think I can't think of an extension down the line again right now. It says it's far contrast from the formative steps that he had in football. In 2020, the fullback found himself in the throes of the MSL draft, a lottery inspired, perhaps closely associated with other big budget USA sports such as basketball and American football. A moment's notice being selected for one team could mean upping sticks and travelling the length of the country, or further if you end up based in Canada, in order to make a living with the sport you love. Johnson added, honestly, it's one of the craziest experiences in my life. They actually set up a camera crew in my house and we were filming it back then. The producer was one of those drafts from the 20 seconds head start on what was going on. You could see every single team's scarf lined up before I knew whose team I made the pick. It's a crazy system, isn't it? It's a crazy system. It's not a bidding system. It's just actually nuts. The Americans are just crazy when it comes to sport. It says some Orlando scarf got pulled, and it says, I'm going to Orlando. And then I knew I'd picked up it. I knew I'd be going there. But then all of a sudden, they said the scarves were moving around and the trade just happened. I'm like, it's insane. North America is so big, meaning one pick might see you sent to Vancouver, where I was born on the West Coast, and then if you don't pick that, you could end up in Miami, way down in the southeast, which is a completely different lifestyle. Ultimately, Johnson landed in Nashville, Tennessee, helping sculpt him into the player that he is today. So 3 years on, after that draft uncertainty, Johnson has made his Celtic debut in a thrilling 2-2 draw against the Sevconians at Ibrox, and on just after when Dyson Maeda opened the scoring, and Kyogo Furiashi. 2 years later, and Johnson signed a new 5-year deal at Celtic, and he's still pinching himself. He goes on about talking about the draft. He says, with the draft, you're consistently thinking, what would my life be like here or there? Everything is out of your control. It's really odd, and I was lucky enough to be selected by Nashville in the end. That was great for myself and my family on a personal level, which helped me get here. I look back on it again, and maybe if a different team had picked me, you never know what. I might not be sitting here today at Celtic. Maybe I wouldn't have had the chance to break through and bouncing around the MLS and even finding a home. When you don't get to a place like Celtic, you've got to think to get to a place like Celtic, you've got to be lucky. You want to be part of something that feels important, and that's what Celtic gives you. I've been lucky enough to be part of that for the last 2 years, and hopefully many, many more to come in the next 5. That was Alistair Johnson talking to obviously the American media, and it's a fantastic little story. That is a fantastic little story about Alistair Johnston. But when it talks about Big Rab B has just hit it on the head. Now AJ is sorted, must get Taylor sorted out, or a left back brought in January, as Alex Baye isn't staying at Celtic past the summer. Yes, he's not, and he isn't that. But let me just jump through these comments because I want to see if someone's in. Stephen, I think I replied to your email as well also. But anyway, yes, so with the fact that Alistair Johnson is now signed up, before we talk about the predicted 11 and the potential score lines, today are predicted score lines for the Hearts Celtic game this evening. And obviously with that contract update from Celtic yesterday, Brendan Rodgers was also asked about the fact, will he ultimately add to his contract term at Celtic, and he was very coy about it in the interview yesterday, and he says, I'm sure that they'll sit down next season. Rodgers said right at the beginning of his contract, when he was asked about it yesterday, he said, what did I say right at the beginning? He said, I will stay here for the 3 years, which would then, in a bygone era, put the fear of death into Celtic fans. The fear of death into Celtic fans thinking, is he going to walk? Is he going to go at the end of the 3 years? I think that, people that really knew Brendan and people that I've spoke to knew that he would stay for the 3 years. Will he ultimately stay for more than the 4 years, the 3 years, and stay on for 4 or 5? Will he ultimately stay to get Celtic to another 9 in a row down in the years to come? I think it would be fantastic if he did. And sometimes he said, look, when Brendan Rodgers said, when you look at it, I would have been here 6 years. That's a long time for any Celtic manager, although it was over 2 different occasions. But I think that if Brendan Rodgers can get the finances that he wants, can get the players that he wants, and he can get Celtic performing the way that he envisages Celtic to be performing and to maintain that level in the Champions League, I think that there's absolutely no reason why the board wouldn't give him a new contract. And let's hope it's done in the summer, because if he's only got a year to go and he's only contracted for that one more year, you know what happens? Sometimes some other teams come knocking on the door and make it hard for the manager to say no. Anyway, when Rodgers signed back in 2023, he said, look, up to a year ago, there was a lot of Celtic fans that didn't want me here. But when I'm talking about his own contract and the contract of Greg Taylor yesterday, there was one thing that I did notice about Brendan Rodgers when he was talking about Greg Taylor. He didn't sound as enthusiastic. And I think ultimately the Greg Taylor situation, there's noises coming out of London again this morning, a couple of days ago actually, that Celtic are again, and people are going to say, well, is this story just going to stop? Well, I don't think it will going to stop. The fact that Kieran Tierney has now reportedly been told, Kieran Tierney has been told that he can leave Arsenal in January. Arsenal had hoped to sell Kieran Tierney last summer until he got injured at the Euros. And when he got injured at the Euros, it basically meant there was no chance of Arsenal selling the player. Now, it's been said again that Celtic are monitoring the situation with Kieran Tierney. Now, is this the real reason? Is this the real reason that Greg Taylor has refused to sign a new deal with Celtic? Because he knows if Greg Taylor would speak to Kieran Tierney. I mean, they're in the Scotland team together. You know, they've all got each other's phone numbers, and it wouldn't be surprised if the word has got to Greg Taylor that Celtic have made contact with Tierney. You know, we've seen the conversations that when Brendan Rodgers and the Celtic Foundation were down in London just a month or so ago, and the manager and Kieran Tierney in deep conversation. There would have been the talks then. Brendan Rodgers will know ultimately that Kieran Tierney has not committed to the club. Kieran Tierney will know that if Greg Taylor, will know that if Kieran Tierney comes back, that's another player that's going to push him out of position. You know, it's a player, and Brendan Rodgers can talk up all he wants in front of the media, but when you look at the body language of Brendan right at the beginning of the interview yesterday, and he was so relaxed and he was sat back and he looked really enthusiastic and he was happy. And then when he spoke about Greg Taylor, he kind of clammed up a little bit. His body language changed slightly. He kind of tensed up a bit, which means he knows ultimately that Greg Taylor is going to leave in January, and I think that we all know that. But he has to come out in public and say, we want Greg Taylor to stay. Because ultimately, if he gets Greg Taylor to stay as a Scottish player, as a player that he knows well, that knows the system, but if Greg feels that his time at Celtic is done and he wants to go on and better himself and ultimately get more money so that he can have a better life ultimately after football, it is a short career with football players. It's a hard one for Greg Taylor, it's a hard one for the manager, and ultimately, if Celtic are realistically looking at Kieran Tierney, who has been told, the noise is coming out of London, says Kieran Tierney has been told that his Arsenal were reportedly informing the player that he can leave in January. Tierney has been told that he can leave Arsenal in January. Celtic are understood to be monitoring the situation, with fans hoping they can get him in a custom kit again. Brendan Rodgers is an admirer of Tierney from his first spell at Celtic, and it appears that he's looking to bring the Arsenal defender back at 27-year-old, and with a list of injuries to the player over the years. And it was funny that Alistair Johnson had a little dig at Cameron Carter-Vickers, calling Cameron Carter-Vickers an old man that was injury, had his fair share of injuries because he's an old geezer. I just think it's interesting that if Celtic do go for Kieran Tierney, and it's looking more and more likely, it is looking more likely, and with all the noises coming out of, when you see the players that play in Tierney's position at Arsenal, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 different players that can play left back for Arsenal. So, and when everyone's fit, it means that Kieran Tierney's way down the pecking order, and Mikel Arteta's never really fancied Kieran Tierney anyway. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see if it had came out as well, that's what I'm reading, is they had planned to sell or loan Tierney last summer if it wasn't for his injury. So anyway, that's another one that will rumble on until loan Kieran Tierney an additional 6 months and negotiate a price deal in the summer. I think that even then, and not heard Taylor as a 7 million rated player, that's what it would cost that to sign him as backup. Just push figures out from the board. Snowing in Ayrshire as well. Kieran Tierney is wanting to take a 15k basic, then with appearance bonuses mechanism, then maybe yes, says Mo. I think that Hank, sorry, I don't think you're Hank. Did you get the message about the email? That was through Facebook actually. Yeah, give me a reply on via Facebook. So yeah, let's get on to the Hearts game today. Celtic do travel to Hearts. And in the team, obviously, I'm going to go with Alistair Johnson, as always. I'm going to go with Kasper Schmeichel, the ghost. I thought that was brilliant on the Celtic video when Tony Roper turns around to Kasper and goes, "Are you a ghost?" And Kasper goes, "Funny." Anyway, yes, Baz. Perfect, mate. Hank, perfect. Right, JJ is going for 4-1 Celtic. Start giving me your predictions for the scoreline in the comments section. The team that I'm going to go for is obviously going to be Kasper Schmeichel, Alistair Johnson, definite. He's going to be buzzing after signing that new contract. At the back, it's going to be Austin Trusty, I think, and Cameron Carter-Vickers. And the reason being is I think that Cameron Carter-Vickers having that a couple of weeks off and coming back into the team fully fit, and Austin Trusty having that pace. Now remember that Brendan Rodgers spoke about the reason why he would play Austin Trusty over Liam Scales. There's nothing to do with the fact that Liam Scales got sent off for Ireland. It's nothing to do with that. It's the fact that Austin Trusty has that bit more pace, and the fact that Hearts will probably try and have a counter-attack go at us, and Austin Trusty does have that pace. So that's the back two I'm going to go for, is Cameron Carter-Vickers and Austin Trusty, along with Ali Johnston. Now, when it comes to the left back area, it's going to be a massive couple of weeks, because if you start seeing Greg Taylor getting dropped for Alex Baye, you know that Greg Taylor's gone. And as much as Brendan Rodgers said yesterday, I want him to sign a new deal. I want him to, he will give, and the telltale sign that ultimately he will be leaving, Greg Taylor will be leaving, is that Brendan Rodgers said, look, he will give his all up until the last minute. So I think really everyone at Celtic knows that he's not going to sign a new contract. But the manager has to come out and say in public, look, we want him to stay. Because ultimately you're going to save yourself 7 or 8 million on buying a player. Hope the game is on, says JJ. Is it snowing in Edinburgh? Surely they'll be able to get the snow cleared. God, that would be a cracking game to go to. Snowplow right through the Swine Castle. Oh, Jesus. Hopefully we'll pump them, but on us 3 points will do. Yeah, it will that. So anyway, getting back to the team, my back four is going to be Austin Trusty, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Alistair Johnson, and goals is going to be Kasper Schmeichel. And I think that I'm going to go with Greg Taylor. I think that he's going to get the nod just because it is one of those stadiums and it is one of those grounds where it can get a bit physical, and Greg Taylor has that little bit more physicality about him than Alex Bailly. Alex Bailly will make the bench, and I think that Alex Bailly will ultimately come on towards the end of the game. Even if Greg Taylor does make starting lineups between now and January, you'll see that Greg Taylor is brought off towards the later end of the game so that the manager knows that Alex Bailly is completely up to speed. And then come January, Alex Bailly is going to get the first team position to himself until we bring someone else in to try and fight him for the position. In the midfield, Callum McGregor, as always. Callum McGregor, Rio Hatate, the manager spoke highly of Rio Hatate, talking about his consistency and that he's progressed this year as a player and he's been more consistent than ever, and he needs to keep up that consistency, not just in the SPFL, not just away games to Kilmarnock on a dodgy pitch, and he needs to keep the consistency for Kilmarnock on a dodgy pitch. He needs to keep the consistency for the Champions League. That's another little insight into the thinking of Brendan Rodgers and ultimately what the player wants, because I think Rio Hatate will be the one that's sold come the summer. Arne Engels. I think Arne Engels, Callum McGregor and Rio Hatate will be the three players in the middle of the park. Arne Engels got slated slightly for his performance for his national team. The young lad will come back to Celtic and dust himself down, and the manager has a lot of faith in the young Arne Engels. And I think that Paulo Bernardo will feel a bit face his nose out of joint because he's going to put back down to the bench. Anyway, despite Paulo Bernardo's reliability, I think that he'll be brought on in the second half for either Rio Hatate or Arne Engels, so we need to keep an eye on that one. When it comes to the wingers, they pick themselves, don't they? The wingers pick themselves. The wingers pick themselves. Do you know who it is? It's Nico Kuhn, the man of the moment, the man that is getting spoken about getting a chance to play for his country, which is absolutely fantastic. And I think that he and his agent have come out and said that they're not going to be looking for new suitors for him in the near future because he's found a home. A bit like Alistair Johnston. When players find themselves at a club that's maybe been on a journey over a 2 or 3 year period, and it's like Cameron Carter-Vickers. Cameron Carter-Vickers was passed from pillar to post when he was at Tottenham. He'd been out on loan at about 6 or 7 clubs. And when you get to a team where everything just fits together and you love wearing that jumper and the fans adore you, I think the fact that Cameron Carter-Vickers, Nico Kuhn and Alistair Johnson have all spoke about it, saying that, this feels like home, so why would you want to rush away from here? There are players that have the bigger picture and think they want to play in a bigger league, but ultimately, when you're playing in the Champions League every year, and you're getting 8 games in the Champions League against the top teams in Europe, some players are a bit more realistic about their ambitions, and then it comes down to who will play up front. The last game saw Adam Ida get a wee elbow to the pus, as they say back home, a wee cheeky elbow square off the pus, a wee elbow to the face, and that ultimately made him not get called up. Well, he called himself off for international duty. He's had a couple of weeks to rest up, but ultimately I think it'll be Kyogo. I think Kyogo will get the nod for this game before the big Irishman. I think that Kyogo will get the nod, and then it'll be changes in the second half where Adam Ida may come on to just put his weight about a bit if the scoreline isn't to Brendan Rodgers' liking at the time. So the full team I'm going to go for is it's the normal team that picks itself, isn't it? I mean, it's the team that you would expect: Schmeichel, Johnson, Carter-Vickers, Trusty, Greg Taylor. And how much longer we have Greg Taylor for, and how much more game time he gets. We saw it last December with David Turnbull. David Turnbull just went out the picture completely to make sure that he stayed 100% fit so that we could sell him in the January. And we did manage to get £3 million for David Turnbull. And I think we'll get £3 million for Greg Taylor also. In the middle of the park, that picks itself also. McGregor, Engels, Hatate, they're the best players that we have. Engels has got that big financial burden on his shoulder that Celtic fans say he needs to perform at the highest level. Brendan Rodgers then turns around and says that Arnie Engels has a lot of progression to have as a football player. He's still a young player with a lot to learn in the game. Celtic fans are going, for goodness sake, 11 million, what more can he need to learn? Anyway, that's my team. Let's jump into the comments section. I'm going to really jump between screens today because one of the screens isn't working that I normally use. But everything's running fine, which is good. Anyway, the score predictions for today for the Hearts Celtic game. If Cal McInerney are on there, then 3 points coming down the M8, says Joseph Davison. Stephen Johnson's in the house. PS3 Retro TV is going for 6-0. 6-0. I don't think it'll be 6 today. Mr. Quinn's going for 3. Squish is going for 3-1. Stephen Johnson's going for 4-1. Mr. Quinn's going for 3-1. Stuart McAllister is going for 3-1. Also, 3-0 says Kevin. Yeah, no, he doesn't like Tierney because he's an ex-Celtic player. Who cares? I mean, Arsenal are just a woeful club anyway. They're terrible. JJ's go for 4-1 Celtic. Loan Kieran for an additional 6 months and negotiate a cut price in the summer. I think that he's only got a year left after this summer anyway, so you're not going to get Arsenal are not going to get big money for him. Nowhere near what we paid for him anyway. And the fact that he's had very, very little game time is that the valuation of Kieran Tierney must be a way down to about 10 million maximum now. It's nowhere near what we sold him for anyway. Stephen Johnson's going for 4-1. Mo says the snow ploughs right through Swinecastle this evening. Hopefully we'll pump them and get the 3 points. We'll do. I haven't even looked at the other games today because I wonder if games will get called off. SPFL. Let's get the William Hill fixtures of the day. Interesting one. 3 o'clock kickoff today is Rangers versus Dundee United. I need to get the league table up. I haven't even got the league table up yet. And just always remember, if you want to get some Amazon products for your some fantastic gifts for your loved ones this Christmas, make sure to jump on to the link that's in the videos, the One Celtic Fans View shop on Amazon. And let's get the league table up. There's an early kick-off with the mob across the city. Dundee United will be looking to close the gap with Rangers. If Dundee United manage to win today, it will take them level on points with the Rangers. So it is all there for Dundee United. It's all there. And if Dundee United were to win by 3-0, it would take them above them on goal difference. So let's hope that Dundee United can do the job this afternoon. Realistically, can Dundee United do it in Govan this afternoon? And then you have Ross County Motherwell. Oh, that's going to be a good one. I think that Motherwell will win that, and I hope that will help put the pressure on Rangers. It would be a fantastic day if Dundee United and Motherwell could both win this afternoon. But the fact that it's up at Ross County, that game might be one that may get snowed off. St Johnstone play Kilmarnock at 3 o'clock. And St Mirren host Aberdeen. Yes, St Mirren host Aberdeen. Now that'll be a tasty game on its own. And Aberdeen will be looking to maintain their position in second place. But they'll be hoping any slip up by Celtic away to Heart of Midlothian tonight. It's a 7:45 kickoff. What a ridiculous time of night to be playing on a Saturday night. Whoever come up with that idea is absolutely nuts. So it'll be interesting. What we will do, as normal, we will do the Dundee Hibernian game kicks off at 5:45. But at full-time results, we will do a video at full-time results as normal on a Saturday afternoon. Let's just jump into the comments before we go. No to KT, same as James McCarthy. He'll be a ghost on the team sheet, says Big Rab B. I think James McCarthy was a little bit older than 27 when he came to Celtic. Jim McClarty says, I think it's going to be a tough game. That's why he's went for 1-0. Mr. Quinn says, come on, Dundee United. It's snowing in Scotland. It is snowing in Scotland. We're trying to just say what parts of Scotland and how heavy it is. Robert says, 2-0, hail, hail from St Ives, Cornwall. Lots of love for you and your family. Thank you, Robert. He'll hail from a snowy Livingston. There seems to be a blanket sheet across the central belt. I wonder if it'll affect any games today. I'm sure we'll be keeping an eye on that. JJ said, I'll be gutted if it's called off. If it's called off, it'll be a complete fix, because there's no way that the game should be called off unless there's about 4 foot of snowfalls within the next 4 hours and they can't get the pitch clean. But it's snowing everywhere, mate. Nice one. It's pissing down here in Swansea. There we go. In Wales. It's just rain. Morning Truth says Rambo JB. And let's jump into some. How long have we been on? I've been on for half an hour. That's more than enough this morning. Time for me to go do some stuff. And we'll jump back on at 4:45 to get the final results. Until then, have an absolutely... It's snowing in Australia, mate. Parked up in the lay-by outside Oxford watching it. Anyway, that's me done and dusted for today. I need to try and find it. Morning from Free Derry. JJ, see you later. Everyone, see you later on, and have a fantastic day. Let's hope that Celtic are still maintain their lead at the top of the table this evening. And on that note, have an absolutely fantastic evening, Celtic fans, all around the world.
Roll up to the party, roll up to the party.